Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Seek and Find Life's mental health and relationship series. Really excited to get this all started with you. And the first topic we're going to be covering in this series is resistance. And one of the things I wanted to mention up front before we start to get into these episodes is that the first few episodes are really going to be focused on building awareness. So you might get a little frustrated and you say, wait, like I'm learning these things, I'm noticing these things, but you haven't given me any tools to change these things yet. And we're going to get there definitely. We just felt it's very important for us to build a little bit of understanding on what's already going on before we get to how to make an impact on these things. But probably starting with episode 4, we'll start to get into some strategies that you can use in order to make an impact on your life. But at least these first few episodes, we're going to be focused on just building some awareness on the things that we're doing right now. And as I had mentioned in the intro video, one of the first things we want to do with every episode is be very clear on what the goals of the episode are. And that way you can actually help hold us accountable to whether we're meeting these goals or not. And there's 3 goals for every video. One is along the lines of understanding. The second is along the lines of application. This actually is relevant to you. It applies to you. And the third is along the lines of experience, that you actually are getting some kind of result from getting out of this, from finishing this episode. And for this episode, the first goal, the understanding goal, is, and we phrase these in kinds of sentences that hopefully that you can feel good about saying at the end of the episode, is I understand what resistance is and why it happens. So hopefully at the end of this episode, you can say, I understand what resistance is and why it happens. The second is hopefully you can say by the end of the episode, I realize resistance is present in my life. I realize that every day this is something that I'm encountering. And the third is I can now recognize resistance in my daily life. Is when I'm going throughout my day, I can just notice, oh, this is happening. Oh, this is happening. Again, we're just focused on building some awareness. And so to start off this episode, we have a couple of questions. Number 1, what is resistance? And number 2, why does it happen? And, we're a habit formation program. And so one of the first things that's kind of curious is, okay, if I want to go see the movies with my friends, I go see the movies with my friends. If I want to go out to lunch, then I go out to lunch. But if I want to go to the gym, then suddenly there's this feeling inside of like, wait, I don't want to do that. Or if I want to go do my homework or something that we're resisting. Probably the most common form of resistance is procrastination. So this is something that probably many of us are familiar with, is anything that we're kind of putting off or avoiding doing. Usually the reason for that is because there's some kind of resistance in our being. And so we want to understand, why is that happening, and why is it only happening for some things but not other things? Hopefully this episode today will help us answer those questions. And the way that we'd actually like to start off each episode after going over the goals is with an exercise. And the episode is really built so that we would cover an exercise through the period of the episode and that we could work through it together. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is, when we do the exercise, I'm going to read it and then give you a time to pause the video and then go ahead and write down your answers. And then we're going to work through it together. Hopefully you can work through your answers. I'm going to work through some sample answers along with the episode as well. And I also encourage you to keep a journal. Again, you can just take, a notepad on your computer or maybe on your phone and just keep a running journal for all the episodes that we're going over and all the exercises that we're doing. I think this is hopefully going to keep a good record for you and show you the changes that are going to happen in your life as you're going through each episode. So go ahead and do that now, and we're going to start with this first exercise. And so what I'd like you to do is pick one thing that you resist or procrastinate. So pick one thing in your life. Maybe it's doing homework, maybe it's exercising, maybe it's preparing that report or presentation for your client, whatever it is. And pick one thing that you're resisting. Anytime you're like, I really don't want to do that, or anything that you procrastinate, anything that you've noticed you kind of like put off, maybe it's doing the dishes. And then I want you to answer the question, how do you talk to yourself about it? How do you talk to yourself about it? And I was doing this exercise with one participant, and he said, I don't think I really say anything to myself. I just kind of think this. If that's the case, try and transform whatever you're thinking about into words, right? If you're thinking about what might happen, then kind of put into words what you're thinking about and what might happen. And so right now I'm going to give you a couple seconds to pause the video and then go ahead and write that down. Alrighty. And so coming back, we have a sample answer here having to do with homework. And just to let you know, all of the sample answers I'm going to be using in this series are from actual participants. So these are all real answers from real people that really face these issues in their lives. To me, it's very important that these are real examples from real people and not just something that came out of like a textbook or something like that. This is all something that's affecting someone. And for this participant, who was very kind to give me permission to use his answers, he said, if I don't do this, I'm going to fail my classes and go back on academic probation like before. And so when he's facing resistance of, I have to do my homework and I have to do it, then this is kind of what he's telling himself, or this is what he's thinking about is, if I don't do this, I'm going to fail my classes. I'm going to go back on academic probation like before. It's going to be really, really bad, right? So this is the way that he's trying to motivate himself to do his homework. And so the next part of this exercise, I would actually like you to reread what you wrote as if someone is speaking it to you. So rephrase whatever the words you wrote were into the second person, so like you, and then go ahead and kind of like read it back to yourself as if someone was reading it to you, as if maybe it was your dad that was reading it to you, or your teacher, or someone else was kind of like telling you to do your homework in this case, or telling you to do whatever it is that you chose as the thing that you're resisting. And then what I want you to do is write down how you feel. How do you feel when that's spoken to you? And go ahead and write down how you feel when that's spoken to you. So I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. And to go back to the sample answer here, what this participant wrote was, if you don't do this, you're going to fail your classes and go back on academic probation like you were before. So this is him rephrasing it in the you form, right? If you don't do this, you're going to fail your classes and go back on academic probation like you were before. And when I asked how he felt when he heard that, he said, I feel discouraged and defeated, like I just want to give up. I feel discouraged and defeated, like I just want to give up. And so initially, when we had started this exercise, he might have thought, it's weird. Why am I facing resistance, or why am I procrastinating my homework? But actually, when we look at how we talk to ourselves, and we look at how it feels when we talk to ourselves, it actually might be no surprise. When we're looking at how these words hit us, if you're feeling discouraged or feeling defeated, like you want to give up, I don't know why you'd want to do your homework at that point, right? And you're so afraid of what might happen. And so actually, this is a lot of times what's within resistance, is when we're talking to ourselves in a way that's actually producing a lot of negative emotions. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's coercion, right? Some kind of like forcing myself, maybe it's discouragement, maybe it's defeat, but it's producing a kind of emotion that's actually not motivating us. It's not making us want to do whatever it was that we're resisting. And so this is actually a lot of times what's inside resistance. And so to kind of answer the question more directly, and just to mention, none of these definitions that we're using in this series are kind of like formal textbook definitions or psychological definitions. They're more just something that we find helpful as a way to understand what we're talking about. And so in this case, what we have is a tendency to avoid obligation that has no choice. And even that's a little bit technical, but basically what we're saying is, if someone's telling you have to do something, you don't want to do it. And so the phrase that we have on here to explain that is, I don't want to because I have to. If I chose to do it, then that's different. But if I have to do it, then I don't want to anymore. So I don't want to because I have to. As soon as it becomes an obligation, suddenly there's some kind of resistance in me against it. And why does this happen? Why does resistance happen? Well, we have free will as human beings, and we resist a lack of freedom. And so when someone's telling us you have to do this, including if it's ourselves, interestingly enough, actually suddenly there's this thing that comes up within us that says, no, I want to have choice. I want to have freedom. I want to have my free will in this situation. And as soon as you tell me I don't have any free choice, I don't have any free will, I just have to do it because of something, or because you said so, then suddenly there's something within me that resists that doesn't like that. And so I don't want to because I have to. As soon as I have to, I don't want to anymore. And so in terms of recognizing resistance in our own lives, Are there any times that you've noticed yourself using have to, must, should, need to? I gotta get this done. If I don't get this done on time, then something is gonna happen to me. I have to do this, or I really need to get better at this, or I really should do this, or I really should be better with my eating or my weight or whatever it is, or I really must do something like that. Well, you'll notice that when you use these kinds of words, that there's something within you that's reacting to it, that's like a block, like a, ugh, I don't want to, right? And so anytime we kind of try and force an obligation on ourselves, it's almost like somebody else is forcing it on us. Is there's just going to be that kind of resistance in our being, in ourselves, that says, no, I don't want to because you're taking away my choice. And so today, that's all we're going to cover. And I hope that we can say that we've accomplished these 3 goals for you. So go ahead and let us know, right? Number 1, do you understand what resistance is now and why it happens? Number 2, do you feel that resistance is present in your life? And number 3, do you feel that you can now recognize resistance in your daily life? When you're going about your day, can you notice when you're using these words and what the reaction in yourself is when you use these words and when you try to get yourself to do these kinds of things using this method? As always, comment on this video. Let us know, how we're doing, if you got benefit from it or not. Always feel free to email me if you'd like to do that. Also, feel free to comment or email what your answers to the exercise were. I always like to use real answers from real people. So if you feel comfortable sharing that with us, then I'd like to incorporate that into future videos or in other things. And so we can just get more different perspectives from different people on what their experience of resistance is. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope to see you for episode 2.